Hey, today I'm talking about Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, the zombie movie from 2004. A little disclaimer, I'm a George A. Romero fan, so be warned. I tend to compare the original Dawn of the Dead and Zack Snyder's version. The Dawn of the Dead remake was one of the first DVDs in my collection, if I remember it right. I bought it early on and I hardly ever watched that film. From time to time, I take it off the shelf and I pop it in the player and I watch a few minutes, but I don't think I've watched Dawn of the Dead all the way through, ever. Now I'm going to try and describe how I feel about this film without slagging it off. Let's see if I can manage that. Let's start with the good stuff. The new Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 Dawn of the Dead, has pretty nice cinematography. I think this is what compels me to come back and give this film a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance, is that I like how it's lensed. It does a pretty good job of rendering locations and spaces which I find not at all photogenic. It does a good job of rendering these places quite appealing. So fair play to the film's visual crew, to the cinematographer. The director, Zack Snyder, I'm not familiar with his work. I've only seen Dawn of the Dead and I've seen the trailer to 300, and that's it. His visual style, his aesthetic is pretty alien to me. This is something that I've come to realize. His approach to blocking scenes and opening up spaces in his films is there is just something there which I instinctively just reject. So this may be one of the reasons why I struggle with this movie here. Based on the screenplay by Romero. So what does this amount to? There are some, let's say, you could call them quotes, citations, a few stray lines of dialogue here and there which have made their ways almost verbatim from the original into the remake. And that's about it. I think the original Dawn of the Dead was about people and their relationships, and there may be fractured relationships, and how it all basically goes to shit under pressure. And it was also, you could say, an ironic look at consumerism. The malls were relevant. The malls were on the rise when the original Dawn of the Dead came out. So what about the new film? The new Dawn of the Dead. It was actually made around the time when I think the mall crisis was beginning to sort of manifest itself. The whole dead mall thing was just hatching at that time. The new Dawn of the Dead is like an action film. It's if you compare it to the original film, it has a bigger cast of characters, and they kind of crowd each other off the screen, I find. So we never get to explore the relationships between them. Yes, they spend the time together in the mall like in the original film. Yes, they have their dreams, and it all sort of, again, shatters due to their failing to work as a team. Yes, but why is it so hard to care? I don't know. I'm trying to reflect, and the one thing that comes to mind is maybe the dialogue density. I think there is a lot less dialogue in this new Dawn of the Dead, and it's a lot more functional, the dialogues. You know, it's like when the character walks on screen and they will basically say, you know, I'd rather kill you than let you walk through the door. So they're very direct about their function. So they remain sort of like quite cardboard. They don't really have the lines. The actors are good. The actors do a very good job. But it's just the material is like on a video game level or a comic book level in this new Dawn of the Dead. And again, this video game, why do I bring this up? Is the CGI, I think. It's obviously, now in hindsight, looking at a movie from 2004, of course the CGI is going to be a bit the film's weak spot for sure. So it takes you out of the movie, especially the explosions. Another aspect which takes me out of the film is the sound effects. Also the zombie moans and screams, they're all quite generic, and the zombies, also the way the zombies move, it's something like they're all posing for the trailer. Like each zombie wants to, you know, like really show how crazy they are, how rabid they are, so they really freak out like they're on some kind of drugs. So I've never seen such ridiculous monsters. They don't frighten you, they don't make you think. I think Romero wanted you to maybe have a chuckle, and then also to think, to reflect, why are the zombies in the mall? Whereas the new movie just wants you to like shoot them in the head and reload. So there is a lot of guns getting cocked in the new Dawn of the Dead, and there are those loud gunshots, and there are slow motion kind of moments of guns going off. I don't know, it seems a bit like gun fetishism. There are plenty of guns in the original film as well, and there is even that when they go shopping in the original film at the gun store, and they kind of, you know, take the holsters and all those, you know, kind of stack up on ammo. Yeah, sure, but there were also characters there to counterbalance that, whereas with the new one, I feel the characters are a little bit too thin. Also, I wonder, why do they establish Sarah Polley as our, you know, lead in the beginning of the film? We see the story unfold through her eyes to begin with, the first 2 minutes. So that would have been something original. Maybe make it not an ensemble piece like the original film, but take it more from a single person's perspective. But no, then there are more and more characters entering the story. And how do they enter this story? It's always with some kind of a bang. Like, if you think about it, Sarah Polley, she escapes from the house, she crashes through the window, she drives the car through the mayhem, then she crashes into a tree or something, and she goes out. And then, again, there is a gun pointing at her. There is that typical, you know, the sound, exaggerated sound effect of a gun getting cocked. So the new characters are always kind of introduced via a bang, like when there is a group of survivors who crash their truck, they ram their truck into the mall, and so they kind of come in quickly, and they don't really, you don't get to know them, then they get killed again. In the early scenes, there is characters, they just barely have the time to say hi or whatever, and then they get eaten or they disappear. So it's all very, very on the surface. I like the premise of the new film, and I like how visually, how it's established, the universe. But I wish I could be more with the guys. I wish I could root for any of them, which I can't. I don't give a fuck. Which is why I can't watch this movie past minute 45. I think the first half interesting line of dialogue occurs at around minute 33 or thereabouts. It's like when Mekhi Phifer and Ving Rhames, I think, they're, you know, they have a little bit of a chat there with the guy who sells TVs, with the English actor. I think that's the first time there was some speck of character and relationships there, but it ends pretty quickly. Each period, each generation gets the zombie movie it deserves. In the 2000s, they deserve fucking Dawn of the Dead. That was the time it was. Like with the original movie, I want to be with those guys. I often catch myself thinking, I would have loved to have been the fifth person with those guys up there in the mall, and that would have been a hell of an adventure, and that would have been a challenge and a test, and you know, that would have been so exciting, which is why I enjoy the original film so much. But with the new one, I would have hated to be stuck with those people there even for 24 hours, because I think it's just an alienated bunch of characters. And there were also decisions the characters made in the new film which I just didn't want them to. I would have loved, for example, for Ving Rhames to break out and go and look for his fucking brother, you know, which he says, I'm gonna go look for my brother and all that. And then I would have loved for Sarah Polley, for example, not to crash her car. I would have loved her to have found a little isolated house somewhere, and that would have been a more interesting film if she had just stuck on some isolated locations and she would have been just listening to the radio there and maybe observing things, I don't know, hunting, gathering. Because I think she's, you know, her character having been established as the lead, I didn't really want the other 8 or 12 people to pop up afterwards, because they never ended up, you know, building a unit, building a group. So there is no group dynamics in the new film, for me anyway. So I think I've only watched that film like all the way through only once, the new Dawn of the Dead. I'm sure I have plenty more to say. Like, one of the things which generally turns me off films, which it's like a visual which I find always quite dull, is characters watching TV, looking at screens, you know. You can do it right or you can do it wrong. And I think in the new Dawn of the Dead, it's the way it's shot, there is a lot of that. There is a lot of footage being shot off the screens. Like the whole opening credits is all of this pixelated, low-grade, degraded footage. And I don't know, that's not my kind of visual I enjoy, and there is a lot of that in the film, all those kind of fake news flashes and everything. And there is so much of it in the film, I was like, Also the new mall, this mall, which I think was in Canada, they made it. Well, it's just this quite impersonal space. And thinking about it, the production, they had the money in the new film to like put in a fake fountain there or something. Like the original movie cost less than $1 million. And for its time it was like an epic independent film, whereas with this new Dawn of the Dead, there is amazing zombie makeup. It's glorious, it's very realistic, but do they look dead? Do they behave dead? Do they project any of that? Certainly not. So it's ironically, with the title like Dawn of the Dead, it skirts the theme of death and loss completely. So it's an action film, so we're more about showing like guts and brains blown out in slow motion, rather than reflecting on one of the group members getting bitten or getting blown away by the creatures, you know. Whereas in the original film there were lots of gory moments, not always convincing, not always a bit repetitive maybe, but the film was about people and how they deal with shit under pressure. So the new movie is, it feels a little bit like a trailer. You watch the film and now and again there is a thud, there are those risers, they use the sound effects, so it's all those kind of sort of quite flashy moments, I guess. But I kept waiting for the film, for the story to kick in. I mean, it's a movie which is like over 100 minutes long, and it never does. It's all just those kind of set pieces, you know, they're on the roof, they're in the mall, you know, they're fighting off zombies, they're in the parking lot, they're ramming trucks or whatever. But it's, I don't know, it's, it doesn't really amount to much. I really wish it did. I can imagine myself going back to this new Dawn of the Dead again at some point, just because it does promise, it does establish a promise, which for me, it doesn't deliver upon. But I wouldn't say it's like, you know, I'm sure it has its fans, having made over $100 million worldwide. I'm sure it's a much beloved film, but I just don't see myself obsessing over it the way I did with the original film. Again, going back to the original Dawn of the Dead, that film, I didn't embrace it straight away either. It took me years to really understand Romero's Dawn, which to begin with, I found it a bit static. I thought, well, you know, the camera work is a bit static, the editing at times feels a little bit unusual. It doesn't have the gloss and the sheen of like a big budget production, but that film has really grown on me. Whereas with Dawn of the Dead, it's been what, over like, I don't know, 15 years now since it came out, something like that. And I still haven't really warmed up to it that much. If you love this remake, I would like to hear your thoughts. Why? I really would. Thank you very much.